Welcome to Spyder Auto's step bar installation guide for the Honda Element. Before we get started, you'll need a 12mm, 13mm, and 16mm socket and a ratchet. You should have everything pictured here. Here we've laid out our brackets next to our element approximately where they'll go. Before we go any further though, we have to assemble the front bracket. Take the two pieces and assemble them as shown. Install 4 12mm bolts and 4 of the 13mm nuts to complete the front bracket. As you assemble the front bracket, leave the bolts about finger tight to allow room for adjustments in the bracket later. And here we have our completed front bracket. Now looking up just behind the front tire, we'll need to remove these two plastic retainers. Push in the centers with a narrow flathead screwdriver as shown. Now we can put our front bracket into position. Line up the holes in the bracket with the holes for the plugs that we just removed. Install two 12mm bolts through the bracket into the threaded holes we removed the caps from. Let's get a better look. Now to mount the inboard section of the front bracket. As you can see here, the innermost hole in the bracket lines up with the threaded hole in the body. Install a 12mm bolt through the bracket into the body to mount it. Remember, we're leaving some slack in it for now to allow room for adjustment later. Now we can move to the rear. You'll need to remove these two oval plugs. Use a flathead screwdriver to pry them free. Now that we've removed the plugs, install a bolt plate into each of the oval-shaped holes. Be sure to add a plastic washer to each of the studs to keep water out of the frame. With our bolt plates in place, now we can mount the rear bracket onto the bolt plate studs, as shown. Now we'll install two 16mm nuts to mount the bracket to the body. Now we're ready to mount our bar. Now we'll verify that we have the right bar. If your bars have the Spyder logo should be right side up, and the mounting holes in the bottom of the bar should line up with those of the bracket. It looks like we have the right bar, so we'll go ahead and mount it. Install two 16mm bolts through the first bracket to mount the bar. We're not done yet, so leave everything finger tight for now to allow room for adjustments later. And now for the other bracket. As with the other side, install two 16mm bolts to mount the bar. Now that all the bolts are in place, adjust your step bar as needed. Everything looks level, so let's go ahead and tighten it down. We'll start inboard at the front bracket. Tighten the two 12mm outer mounting bolts. Now tighten the 4 13mm nuts that hold the two sections of the front bracket together. and then we'll tighten the inboard 12mm bracket mounting bolt. Now it's back to the rear. Tighten the two 16mm rear bracket mounting nuts. After tightening the rear down, we're done underneath the car. Now it's time to tighten down the outer step bar mounting bolts. Tighten the two 16mm bolts in the rear, and then the two up front. Now that it's all tight, your last step is to check for tightness. Give the bars a few firm tugs to check and make sure they're tight. And that's it! Congratulations, you successfully installed the set of Spyder Auto step bars on your Honda Element.